Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into the architecture of the extreme mindset, deconstructing the grind. When we look at those absolute top-tier, extreme hyper-performers, it's honestly so easy to just chalk their success up to genetic talent or maybe some wild, fleeting burst of motivation. But digging into our source material today, it's completely fascinating. We discover that this unyielding drive is actually a highly structured psychological architecture. It's built, not born. So let's dive right in and deconstruct exactly how this grind is built, piece by piece. So picture this. If you were tasked with building a truly resilient, unbreakable human being right from scratch, what exactly would you put them through? It's a pretty visceral, almost shocking thought experiment straight from our sources. Think about it. You definitely wouldn't put them in a perfectly comfortable, highly accommodated life, would you? You wouldn't just hand them everything on a silver platter. And that sets a very clear baseline for us right away. Comfort simply does not build resilience. If you want to build a machine capable of greatness, well, the blueprint literally requires serious resistance. And that brings us to a foundational philosophy highlighted in the text. Hard times create hard men create soft times create soft men create hard times. This cycle completely dictates the extreme ownership mindset. The speakers in our sources make it abundantly clear that hardship isn't just some unfortunate event you have to suffer through. It's a necessary crucible. Excuses? Yeah, they're entirely unacceptable. Under this framework, you just don't back down, you definitely don't try to fit in, and you absolutely do not expect the world to go soft on you. You know what's really fascinating about this mindset? It's the core difference in how it approaches strategy. Most of society plays life totally on defense. They're living in constant fear of making a mistake, essentially playing purely to avoid loss. But the elite mindset, it's purely offensive. They play to win. They set their target on something positive, they put in the relentless work, and they literally expect a positive outcome. It's the absolute fundamental difference between shrinking away from failure and marching directly toward success. Okay, so how do we actually make that offensive shift? Well, the very first major phase is what the sources call disappearing. Now hold on, that doesn't mean running away from your problems. It means stepping entirely away from society's constant, exhausting need for external validation. It's about doing the work in the dark, when absolutely nobody is watching you. You are building something so solid in private that you completely lose that desperate urge to prove yourself in public. You just stop worrying about what people think and start fiercely valuing what you actually believe. Let's be real, though. Disappearing is incredibly unglamorous. The sources actually refer to this harsh reality as the dungeons. Down there, there's no team. There are absolutely zero pats on the back when you hit a new personal best. There is literally no one waking you up at 4 a.m. to tell you how special you are. When you hit rock bottom, true belief must be entirely self-generated. You have to build it yourself, brick by brick, out of absolutely nothing. To actually survive that dark period, the sources point to an absolutely brilliant cognitive reframe. Think of life like a massive store. We all want the good stuff, right? Traits like toughness, patience, greatness. But as the source material points out, every single one of those traits has a literal price tag attached to it. You pay for toughness with a difficult, challenging life. You pay for patience with delayed results. Your time and your suffering are quite literally the currency you are pulling from your wallet to purchase elite character traits. And once you adopt that transactional view of hardship, complaining it becomes mathematically illogical. It doesn't compute. If every single hardship is just the currency you need to buy greatness, then an incoming obstacle isn't a problem at all. It's an opportunity. The world was unfair to you? Wow, what an opportunity to become undeniably resilient. Someone doubted you? Great opportunity to build unshakable self-belief. This mindset completely neutralizes the emotional sting of adversity. It flips it and turns it into pure, actionable fuel. But okay, let's pause and be totally real for a second. Because even with that bulletproof mindset, fear is still a constant companion. There's this huge misconception that elite performers just magically don't feel fear. The sources shatter that myth completely, which I actually found incredibly surprising and refreshing. There's zero shame in admitting you are afraid. Why? Because fundamentally, there is no courage without fear. Fear is literally a mandatory prerequisite for courage. Once you make peace with the fact that you are going to be scared, fear stops being this red light telling you to surrender and just becomes part of the landscape. So the crucial point here is, how do you actually deal with it? Well, you don't let it rule you. You counter it mechanically. The absolute best mechanical solution to fear is relentless, grueling preparation. Whether you are a fighter facing down an opponent or an entrepreneur staring at a volatile market, the more you prepare, the more you build this undeniable bedrock of confidence. Because confidence isn't the magical absence of fear, right? It's the calculated, hard-earned knowledge that you've prepared enough to possess exactly what you need to succeed. Now, preparation handles the future, sure. But what about the past? What about regret? Our sources offer a ruthlessly clinical approach to regret. Looking back and agonizing, wishing you could do things differently, that is entirely worthless if it just acts as a paralyzing weight. You only get one life. So you have to strip regret of its emotional baggage. The only valuable thing inside of a regret is the data, the lesson you learned from it. Do not be a slave to your past. Instead, let the fear of future regret fuel you to take aggressive action today. And what exactly is that action you need to take today? Well, it's usually the exact thing you dread doing the most. This is a show-stopping realization from the text, "The magic you are looking for is in the work you're avoiding." Every single time you feel stuck, or you feel like progress just isn't coming fast enough, it's almost always because there is a massive, intimidating task, a large frog, as the source calls it, sitting right there in front of you. And let's be honest, nobody actually wants to eat a giant frog. But the sources make it crystal clear. The biggest leaps in your life are hiding directly behind the work you absolutely do not want to do. Which brings us to a really profound paradox. Why do we hide in the first place? A famous quote from our source material hits the nail right on the head. It is often our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We are secretly terrified of realizing just how powerful we actually are. But here's the thing. Playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking yourself just to make other people feel secure. Embracing your full, terrifying potential is exactly what liberates you, and by extension, it automatically liberates everyone watching you. Now, embracing that potential, definitely not an overnight event. It requires sheer chronological endurance. Day 1, Monday, you get a little bit better. Day 2, Tuesday, you get better. You wake up, you give 100%, and physically you might look around and be in the exact same position as yesterday. And you do that for 3, 4, 5, 10 years. That is the real grind. It's compounding those tiny, totally unglamorous daily micro wins into undeniable, massive success over an entire decade. But hey, let's ask the million-dollar question here, because we are all human, right? What happens when you hit that inevitable climax of fatigue? The source asks it perfectly. Those days when I'm tired or worn out or just basically sick of the grind, what do I do? Seriously, what do you do when that initial spark is just completely gone, the motivation entirely evaporates, and you are staring down the barrel of yet another grueling day of doing exactly what you do not want to do? The answer is shockingly mechanical. It is completely devoid of emotion. You go anyways. You don't want to hammer on the project? You hammer on the project. You don't want to get out of bed? You get up and get out of bed. Even if you were literally just going through the motions, you do it. Because simply going through the motions keeps you moving forward. You have to completely separate your feelings from your actions and just execute the standard operating procedure, entirely regardless of your internal emotional weather. Because right in that exact moment of fatigue, you are facing a massive critical choice. You're contrasting the whispering, seductive voice of immediate gratification against the very difficult, righteous path of discipline. Taking the day off, hitting snooze, yeah, that's the easy, downhill path of least resistance. The sources label this simply as weakness. But by choosing to push through, by lifting the weights or sprinting the hill anyway, you are intentionally choosing the path of most resistance. You are staying on the warpath. And that leads us perfectly to this powerful anchor quote from a teacher mentioned in the text, Mr. Fisk. He says, "Rest at the end, not in the middle." The advice here is actually a brilliant, almost amusing psychological trick. If you're gonna procrastinate on anything in your life, procrastinate on resting. Tell yourself, hey, I'll take a break tomorrow. Don't take today off. Push it to tomorrow. Because the incredible truth is, when tomorrow finally rolls around, you likely won't even need the rest. You'll realize that desire to stop was just a temporary moment of weakness that you successfully conquered. So we're gonna wrap up today's explainer with one final, pretty provocative question. We've laid out the blueprint today. We know the currency required is time and suffering. We know the absolute magic is hiding right behind the dread. So the only variable left here is you. Are you willing to pay the massive price tag for greatness? Or are you going to let the magic stay hidden forever in the exact work you are actively avoiding? The map is right in front of you. Now it's time to do the work.